goes. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Reality Kingdom, where we put the real in reality or whatever. I'm your host, Pharaoh. We're joined by a wonderful co-host, Lee. Lee! It's been a ride.
It's been a while. Show me a wild side, boy. I know you get wild. It's been a ride, and Mama, we're here. It all culminated to this final three: Chelsie, Cam, and MJ. And we're on a march to Chelsea's win, and I couldn't be happier, actually.
Me neither. All right. Before we get into it, y'all, firstly, I want to say from Pharaoh, from Lee, to the kingdom, to everybody who's watched this season, a big thank you for tuning in with us week by week for all of our live feed recaps. It's been a pleasure to be with y'all. We've put out a lot of videos, and there were some of y'all who were there every
single live. Y'all was dropping coin.
Come on.
And it's really much appreciated because, girl, we need it. No shade.
We need it. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. Of course, we're still going to have our live finale recap right after the finale. So tune in on Sunday right after the finale. But on there, we're definitely going to be gagging and screaming and throwing up. So I just wanted to make sure we had time to thank you guys and not forget. But it'll be another thanks and another thanks and another thanks. Also, don't forget that after the season is over, we do our last final player rating of every single player. On Tuesday, we'll be dropping that. So definitely get into that as well or whatever.
Period, mama.
Period, mamas. Boom. And remember, this season might be coming to a close. This season might be coming to an end, but definitely you can still tune in with us with our Big Brother Rewind series. We'll be launching again in November for Big Brother 4. So definitely tune in with us for Big Brother 4. Follow us on Twitter and join our Twitter communities, because in the community, we will be talking about the episodes with all of you guys, whoever wants to watch along with us. And then every Tuesday, every Thursday, we post our recaps for that week periodically throughout the season. So definitely get into it with us for that. Okay.
Period. Description in the link in the description below.
Amen. So let's get into this final three, y'all, because now we had it officially. We're officially here. We're here with Chelsie, Cam, and Makensy. Of course, Rubina got fourth, and we're here in the final three. These are the three people we will be discussing today and deep diving into each of their games, as deep as we can go, of course, because sometimes it's surface level.
And we're going to get deep.
But we're going to get deep. Okay.
Deeper than deep. Okay.
Deeper than deep. Firstly, I do want to ask you, Lee. So this is the final three. How do you feel about this being the final three that represents the season compared to other final threes we've had?
Especially within recent years, I don't mind it at all. Last season, I mean, everyone who was vocal about how annoyed they were about the Mafia being top three. And then I go back to BB24, didn't care for Turner, didn't care for Monty. I enjoyed the BB23 final three because of the cookout. However, I would have preferred,
different cookout members.
Let's just say that.
Sometimes.
And then, just going back, I never really cared pre BB23. So it's like,
yeah,
this is a pretty formidable final three. I think that Chelsie had a really, really dominant and strong game. I think that she is one of those once in a lifetime type of player. So her being in this final three is literally major, because I feel like it's been a while that we've gotten that type of archetype in the final three, because Tiffany didn't make final three on her season. The main strategy, she didn't get to that top three spot. I mean, the last time I feel like we've had it was in All Stars, and when it comes to a woman, the last time we had it, I mean, had to have been like Vanessa since BB17, as far as a woman dominating and controlling the game as much as Chelsie has. So I think that her being in it already makes it a high final three for me. I think Makensy has a great story, and I think Cam has little mistakes as a player. So I just think that all three of them have played a game that could lead to a win in any other season, or even potentially this season, depending on how they articulate themselves. So I think it's a good final three for sure. It's Chelsea's final three, and if she likes it, then I love it.
Period. I think it's a pretty well-rounded final three because we have like the comp beast, who that's most of their game, no shade, and then we have Chelsie, who's the super extreme strategist, and then we have Cam, who didn't float, but just played the low key under the radar game, and I feel like we got all three types of games in the end game, and it's like in the final three, and I really like that. It's very well-rounded, and it makes me appreciate this final three more so than some of the last ones. Like you said, there were people I didn't like in some of them. I don't hate any of these people. I love all three of these people. They're fun players in their own different ways. And then I feel like it's dynamic in the sense that none of them really played the same. They all three totally different games. And I feel like even in Big Brother Canada, there's been times where I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing our deep dive. And I'm like, okay, these two players kind of played alike. And then this player played different. But this one, three different games that we finna get into. I'm telling y'all right now, okay? So, I mean, hey, we have few updates because it's not a lot going on with the strategy, of course. At this moment, it definitely seems like when it comes to who's taking who, that Chelsie and Makensy are taking each other, and it doesn't seem too responsive with it when it comes to Cam. And then the results for these part 1 and part 2 HOHs have kind of solidified that, because we got the results for part 1 of the HOH competition, the final HOH competition, and Chelsie won part 1.
Period.
Period.
I was so happy because I was nervous. Oh, I was so nervous, and I still don't trust that Makensy even gonna take her. I don't trust her or Cam. I really don't. I just need Chelsie to win part 3 and take her goddamn self, because I don't trust neither one of them.
And honestly, she has a good chance. So Chelsea's going to be in the final part. It did sound like, from what I heard, it sounded like the normal final 3, where it's an endurance, the first one. The second one's kind of a mixture of the days and then the running around. So I'm assuming the third part is still going to be the booth. It's giving very typical final 3, according to what they've been talking about. So Chelsie won this first endurance part, which was surprising, I will say real quick.
I thought Makensy had that in the bag, but no, mama.
Because even thinking of the wall, Cam did good on the wall. Makensy and Chelsie weren't at the end of the wall the way Cam was. So I thought even if it wasn't Makensy, maybe Cam. And it's like, no, Chelsie. It's like,
she really wins when she needs to, and once she wins the final HOH, she will have the most HOH wins of any player in BBUS history,
which is crazy. We're gonna get a little into that. We're gonna get a little into that too. So boom, we get part 2. Part 2 was Makensy versus Cam, and Makensy wins part 2 of the final HOH. And it's like, damn, shade, but Cam, damn.
Yeah, and it's like Cam ends the season with only one win, that one veto win. It's like, damn, Cam. Everyone's like, D1 athlete, what? I'm not 100% surprised, only because we've seen several athletic people come into this house and not be able to win as much as they can. It is shocking that he hasn't been able to win a little bit more, but I'm not fully shocked, because I feel like we've seen it before. Also, with these comps being equitable now, they just do not fit Cam's aesthetic anymore. If they had more physical competitions like they usually do, of course, Cam probably would have beasted out, but that's not the meta of Big Brother anymore going forward. I think that these equitable comps are going to be a staple, which means that I think we're going to see a lot of more women comp beasts, because the comps are more fair.
Yeah, I agree. So boom, here we are. Makensy wins part 2. Chelsie wins part 1. They're both going to the final part on the finale. And it's typically a quiz comp, probably still going to be a quiz comp. And damn near every quiz comp this season has been won by Chelsie.
Even something like that. When was the last time we had 2 women even competing for the final part of the HOH?
Yeah, probably since the last time we had 2 women in the final, because it's been a while since we've even had 2 women in the final 3 to begin with. Because damn, Casey, it was 2 other men. Nicole, it was 2 other men. Taylor, it was 2 other men. So we would have to go back to Rachel and Portia. And I think Rachel and Portia did win one of each of the parts, and I don't think Adam won either part. So probably BB13, which was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Damn, 11 years. That's a whole kid. Damn. But yeah, boom. So here we are. They're going to the final part and the finale. Likely, well, from what it seems like, they'll both take each other. Maybe one of them could shake the table, but I think it's gonna give they both take each other no matter who wins. And in that case, it could be a Chelsie win of the game. It will be a Chelsie win of the game,
and I will not accept anything else.
Amen. And I was saying this too, like when I saw Chelsie win part 1, it was like, okay, it's easier for her to just reaffirm her final twos with whoever wins part 2, because it's like, I mean, we're both going to part 3. It's easy. So now that it's her and Makensy, they do a lot of celebrating. They've been talking a lot about how, okay, Cam, just expect one of us to take him. He's not going to do it. Da, 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 da. So I think it's solidifying. And so just definitely tune in on the finale and watch us on the finale, because we will be gagging. Okay, period. Let's go ahead and hop into these dives, y'all. The deep dives. We'll be starting this one off with Chelsie.
Let's see.
So let's get into some of these stats, because you talked about her HOHs, and if she wins this final part, she will have won 5 HOHs. It will be the first time in history?
BBUS history, because BB Canada, of course, you have Dimitri, you have Dane. She'll be the first woman in North America and the first person in BBUS history to win 5 HOHs.
Damn, that would be nasty. So Chelsie could set a record on Sunday for the HOHs. There's been a lot of records.
Mother is already a legend, and she's setting a record.
Period. There's been a lot of records this season too, because the amount of vetoes, the veto was used 11 times this season of the 12 options that it was
in a row.
So that's already a record. There's been what else? There's been a lot. But one of them could be that Chelsie wins 5 HOHs, which will be very interesting. She hasn't won any vetoes.
Don't need them.
But she has won an AI arena. So total, it could be 6 comps, but right now it's 5 comps. Do we count AI arenas?
Not fully. However, I do feel like the arena is going to be a staple moving forward.
So
we can't fully cut it yet. Maybe in 10 years from now, when they still got the AI arena twist and we're begging them to give it up.
She was nominated one time, but not as a final nominee, because she won the AI arena. And I have the amount of votes that they got to evict on here for
zero, mama, zero.
And I have it on here for a specific reason, because there is this little thing called perfect game.
Oh.
And Dan Giesling achieved that, and I believe Cody Calafiore achieved that. And what that is when you go through an entire season with 0 votes to evict, and you get all of the votes to win the game. I think
part might be a little hard.
That last part might be a little hard unless she takes Cam. But it's still a possibility, and if it happens, I wanted to have mentioned it. So if Chelsie gets all the votes to win, then she will have been the 3rd person in BBUS history to play a perfect game, and she will be tied with Dan and Cody. So just keep that in mind if it occurs. But we'll see, child, because she's trying to take old girl. Now, let's go ahead and get into the season. So we're gonna rewind back, but not too far. Not BB rewind.
Right.
Not to season 4.
Only back to when did season start? June
1st.
The beginning of the season to July 16th.
July 16th, when the season started, week 1. We're gonna start it off real nice, real nasty with Chelsea's game. So starting off week 1, Miss Angela gagged alive
and won the first
won the first HOH as the oldest woman in the game. Won the first HOH, kicked off the season, and of course, you recall the entire Crazy Eyes beef, the Matt beef, etc., etc. Yeah. But I want to talk about what's going on with Miss Chelsie. And what I remember at the very beginning of this game was turning on the feeds, and the first scene was Chelsie talking to Makensy. And so you're like, damn, she's with Makensy? Oh, and then they're talking about Matt. Oh, she's with Makensy and Matt. You see the other house guests start talking. They're like, oh, Makensy and Matt's over there, and they're beefing with Angela. Then, fast forward later in the night, Chelsea's in a room with Angela and Joseph, and Angela and Joseph are like, us three, we're definitely good. And it's like,
And it's
oh,
like Chelsie really been playing
this
all
is her
sides of
moment.
the game since week 1. Like she came in with a strategy and she's been sticking to it. Like, and then mind you, this is all when she had the downgrade power because the
Yep.
twist of the season, 2 people were going to lose the first night's competition and they would have to be downgraded for the first week, which means they couldn't play in HOH, they couldn't play in veto, and they couldn't vote to evict. They were just there,
Yep.
basically. But they could still be nominated and evicted. So I remember feeling like this was an immediate shot to Chelsie and Cedric's game. But I mean, Chelsie really showed that she is a formidable player this week because she almost, well, I would say damn near centered the game around herself this first week.
Yeah. Towards like this week, she was not in danger. Angela had promised her and Cedric that she wouldn't nominate them because of this downgrade twist. And we saw throughout the week how her connections were really shaking up to be. This week there was a lot of talk between Matt and his little the storage room talks. And he's trying to build his alliance over there. And then we see Angela's trying to build her alliance over here. And eventually, towards the end of the week, we finally get to this concept of the collective that was created. Really, initially, it was going to just be this Angela pitch that she was making. She's like, I like Chelsie, I like Joseph. Y'all are definitely in it. She liked Cam. She liked, like, all the people that Angela really liked ended up just kind of gravitating towards each other and kind of away from this Matt and Makensy situation. And that's what started leading into the collective. And by the end of the week, we see that the collective is loosely formed. It was not even really anything at this moment, but it ended up becoming something with later weeks. And her, Cam, and Cedric were already becoming very, very close by the end of this week as well, at least strategically. So this is what her game was given this first week. She was very active, very all over the place. Loved it. Boom. Moving into week 2, she wins the head of household. Just like that. The first head of household she could compete in. Which I didn't even think of. First head of household she could compete. This is why she won 5. Dang, she couldn't even compete in the first one, and she won 5. That's actually, well, not 5 yet, but almost, she could almost win 5. That's actually crazy. I didn't even think of that. But boom, she wins the second head of household, and of course, immediately her target is Lisa. The house isn't really vibing with Lisa. Very simple weeks towards the beginning weeks. And she kind of treated this week kind of low key, very simple. She has her alliance, and then she's placating the other alliance. What are they called?
The barbershop. Right now we have like the collective, which would be basically everyone in the Pentagon alliance that was also formed. Yep. So that would be, of course, Chelsie, Cam, Cedric, Brooklyn, Quinn, and then the collective core. The collective outliers would be Quinn. Chemo,
T-Core, Joseph, and Angela. Well, they didn't even want Angela in it no more. Angela wasn't even in it. But yeah, so they have this loose thing, and it still wasn't extremely getting talked about this week. It was like just the lingering alliance in the background. And then the barbershop was something they were placating with Makensy and Matt, that they were creating with Leah in it as well. Chelsie, Cam, and Cedric were also in it. And it was like this placating thing that they had on the other side that wasn't really real, you know? So this is occurring here. And this week, she initially had like these house targets. Makensy was a house target, Kenny was a house target, Angela, Lisa, and she's deciding which one of them to put up. And this is when Makensy and her kind of have this conversation, and Makensy exposes her power to her. And from Chelsea's perspective, of course, everyone is trying to figure out who has these powers. So she's, asking around, and when asking around to Makensy, this is when Makensy, gives her this information, and that points Chelsie in the direction of, let me just target Lisa, Kenny, and Angela. And that's who she nominates. Very simple week though. And I think this week I was immediately like trying to figure out where her game was going, because she's starting off the game finding her footing, and she doesn't really solidify anything. That's why I was like, okay, where are you gonna go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like I noticed really early on that instead of really solidifying a new group, she really just started solidifying herself within the different factions within the house, because she was within the collective. Within the collective, she had the Pentagon, and then they also had the barbershop. And the Pentagon basically played within both of those alliances. And then around this week, that was also when the Visionary / Sixth Avenue / Friends alliance started getting pitched with T-Core, Chemo, Rubina, possibly Tucker. Her name was mentioned in that initial group as well as someone that could be included. So with her HOH, I think that she really started showing how stretched out her social gameplay was, because basically everyone was trusting her by the end of that week.
What was scary for me was this was also, like you said, when the Visionaries were formed, it was through the fact that Quinn had started exposing the Pentagon. And this had already started occurring this week. So week 2, she's HOH, everything is fine and dandy in terms of what she's thinking. But on the other side of the house, Quinn is trying to undermine everything going on with the Pentagon core. And this core that they had, Pentagon was a core and it was strong. It was the collective that was like, okay, we're not even solidified just yet. It was taking some time, but the Pentagon was a thing. And I feel like that was the path that Chelsie was, of course, wanting to go down, get to the end of the 5 with the 5 and make that the game plan just for the season. Make it simple. All 5 of us make it to the end. And we see later on how that doesn't work out, but knowing that that was her initial path and then thinking about where she's at right now in the game, it's like, dang, like, it's a journey we got to get through for real. But so yes, that all of that's going on over there. And then she's also kind of getting weary of Cam because he's doing a lot with Leah a little bit here. He's starting to find other places to go. And at first I was like, is this giving crush? And we find throughout the season it was low key.
It was definitely low key giving crush, which
Um
is a reoccurring thing. And I thought they was gonna like halt her from getting the top 3. I thought that this was really gonna hurt her, especially when Leah gets HOH later down the line. But you know, when you're a mother, nothing can take you out.
When you're a mother. So honestly, it's like, it's just, I think this is her stage of finding her footing in the game. She's not necessarily solid in anything. She's like vague alliance here, vague alliance there, but she has her hand in a lot of different pots. And then we just have to see where she's going to go. So we move on to week 3 of the game. Cedric wins HOH right after her HOH. And this is where it's like, okay, it's definitely given collective because 2 of us just won. 2 people in the alliance just won. Joseph is starting to push it. So I feel like in Chelsea's perspective, she's just chilling.
Yeah.
She's just chilling this week. It wasn't a lot for her to do. Cedric's in her core, in the CCC core, and then he's in the Pentagon, and then he's in the collective. This was someone who she was super close with. So in this week, she hasn't really moving around. She's just making sure her connections are still good. She's still locking in with all of that. And the collective is solidifying way, way more. We move forward.
The next, oh, you still
go
on
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, the bad thing this week was that a lot of things was happening under her nose that she wasn't catching on to, because this is the week where Quinn's power is getting exposed, and Cedric as the HOH had this information, and so did Cam, and they did not inform Chelsie of that. So Chelsie later found out about the power being exposed with the house when Tucker exposed it, which it didn't hinder her game too much, because I think the distance between them knowing and not telling her versus her knowing, it was really short. But that was just something that was happening kind of behind her back a little bit that I was worried about, because, you know, I figured she would be in the center of all the information and she was not getting that information.
It's interesting because it's like she had her hands in so many different pockets of the game. But I think because of how chaotic this first part of the season was, it was really just giving, especially because she wasn't trying to take control this early on. And I think she didn't even want that to be the perception. So she wasn't doing all of these crazy moves she starts to do throughout the season. In this moment, she's just like, okay, my ally is HOH. I'm just going to relax and chill. And so much other stuff is going on because the season was very, very chaotic. So it was very interesting that she was still able to end up getting the information, first of all, through Cedric and Cam letting her know. And then Tucker ends up blowing it all up at the veto meeting. And by the end of the week, by the end of this week, Makensy had used her power. Kenny and Quinn and Tucker was on the block. It was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. So, but this brings us into week 4. Week 4, she starts finding her footing and she starts locking in a lot with Brooklyn. And we saw like she have so many good connections. She had a connection with Cedric, she had a connection with Cam, and we're like, okay, where is she gonna go? Who is she gonna link up with? And then it ends up being Brooklyn, who's also in the Pentagon. She's also in the collective. So now that her relationship with Brooklyn is starting to form, it's starting to seem like, okay, this is solidifying in a good way. Quinn has just got his power exposed. Everyone knows about it, and he's agreed to the Pentagon that, look, I'm going to use it to help us. Let me just use it this next week. We're going to lock it in, and we're going to rock it to the end, and da 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 da. He's kind of halted this visionary stuff because he's in a bad position. So Chelsea's now in a better position going into this week. So she thinks. So she thinks, because this was a rough time.
It was a great start to the week with Quinn as the deepfake HOH. Like, he was protecting her. He wanted to basically stick with the Pentagon because prior to this week, he was in talks of using his power against the Pentagon, and that would have been a really bad shot for Chelsie. It wouldn't have been at her, but taking out Cam or Cedric would have been really dangerous for her game. So the fact that it still happens anyway during this week, Cedric still goes home, it really turns the corner for her game because the Pentagon is basically obliterated after this week.
Yeah, I really see like these first 4 weeks before the vote to evict. It's like a stage for Chelsea's game. This is her like learning the game, finding her footing, and then gravitating towards being kind of this head top dog. Because as we see, her and Brooklyn were becoming very powerful forces within the game. And that's what's kind of leading to this next stage of the game. But because of that, she was in a different stage in these first 4 weeks. And then, like you said, the eviction vote happened. Cedric had volunteered to be on the block, and then boom, because the collective had been exposed, the Pentagon had been exposed to all of these outlier people, T-Core and Chemo flipped the vote, evict Cedric, and that diminishes her game just like that. That core is gone. Cedric was in it. The Pentagon is gone. Cedric was in it. It's gotten exposed. The collective, it's gone. So everything has gotten destroyed for her game in week 4, and it was building upward. It was an upward build. It's like, ooh, you're doing good. It's solidifying, the collective solidifying, Quinn's agreeing to be down with it, and then boom, it all comes crashing because Cedric leaves the game. And this is like the rockiest moment for her game, and it's interesting because within these 2 weeks, we'll just see what happens.
It up really quick. I mean, she loses her number one back to back in these next 2 weeks, and she really still picks up her game, and it's because of her social connections. Like, Tucker wins the next HOH in week 5, and she's still well protected because Tucker's new structure includes Rubina, Chemo, and T-Core, 3 people who are protecting Chelsie and do not want to see her go home, even as a nominee this week and a target potentially by Tucker in week 5. They were still fighting to make sure that she stayed safe if she did not win AI Arena this week. So, we see early on that her influence, her social connections as a player keeps her safe on HOHs that she should not be safe. It happened this week, and it happens again during Leah's week. She has such a good social game that where people are literally protecting her in spots where they probably shouldn't be.
This week 5, it was a testament to, like you said, her social connections. And it's interesting because with Chelsie, this beginning of the season, very social heavy, very heavy on I have my hand in a lot of pots, and my social connections are really going to keep me safe throughout this. It's after her alliance gets decimated, Cedric and Brooklyn go home, she has to rely on these social narratives. And then we'll see in these next coming weeks, she switches up and she's like, okay, it was giving socially at first, but now I need to take control of the game. And you kind of see it happen after she gets this big blow to her game. So when Tucker wins this HOH, it is almost a statement to Tucker's whole alliance, because the whole new Frenzy alliance forms with Tucker, Rubina, Chemo, and T-Core. They're trying to have these other alliances add on with 6th Avenue and add Joseph and Angela. All of this is happening throughout these next 2 weeks, but specifically this week. And what happens is Tucker is like, look, Chelsie and Brooklyn, they got to go. They're very big threats. I really want to nominate both of them. One of them can be renom, whatever it needs to be. She doesn't get put up initially. But when talks are happening about her being the renom, we see T-Core, Chemo, and Rubina having conversations, and they're saying, what do we need to say to Tucker to make sure Chelsie is not the renom? She don't need to be the renom. We're not voting her out. So I hope he doesn't expect that. And it's like they were putting their game, not their games on the line, but they were willing to stand 10 toes down to ensure that she specifically Chelsie was not renommed.
Yeah.
Specifically, Chelsie was not evicted this week.
And this was a terrible week because if Brooklyn had won AI Arena, Tucker wanted Chelsie to go home, but T-Core, Chemo, and Rubina fought to the fact that they had the votes to keep Chelsie if she did not win the AI Arena. Like, I think that's just it's so telling the type of game player that she is, because she had people looking out for her even when people within their own alliance did not approve of it.
Yeah, these were the same people who just flipped against her in a way. They didn't include her in the previous vote, are the same people who are about to flip the vote to make sure she stayed. If Brooklyn won this AI Arena and they came back in there, T-Core, Rubina, and Chemo would have flipped the vote again a second week in a row, and kind of in a way not necessarily caring about the backlash. They're caring more about Chelsea's game. Like they were more worried about her not going home than they were about Tucker being upset. And that's why they were like, look, we're just going to have to do it if he doesn't agree. And that's what it had came to. But it didn't matter because she won the AI Arena, which is even more interesting because you really start to see how well-rounded her game is.
Yes.
It's like, if she didn't win the AI Arena, they were going to flip the vote to make sure she stayed. But she won AI Arena. So it's like, it doesn't even matter because regardless of all of her great social game, keeping her safe, she's safe on her own accord. And it's like, she was safe twice.
And that really like, that's why she's such a great player. Like, it really truly is, because she can win competitions. She's great socially. She's great strategically. She's such a well-rounded player. And I think she's going to be one of the most well-rounded winners.
Yeah. And this next week, week 6, after she wins the AI Arena, Brooklyn goes home. Another really, really close ally, her number 1 in the game. She's kind of in a space where I'm like, okay, you're a little bit alone. What are you going to do? T-Core wins the next HOH. And of course, T-Core and her have a great relationship. She's not going to touch her. So Chelsie has time. And this is what always we see throughout Big Brother. There's a situation where you might have time if your ally or someone who's not going to put you up is HOH, because then you can work how you need to work. And she used this week to the utmost.
Yes.
As T-Core was HOH. She used the fuck out of T-Core being HOH because T-Core's HOH, T-Core pawns Tucker. Tucker agrees to it, and he noms Makensy and Cam, who are her allies. So it's like her allies are on the block, but Tucker's a pawn. And so the entire time lingering in the back of her mind is, if I can get these votes to make sure Tucker is sniped out of this game, then we can move forward and it'll switch the entire game around, just like how they did when they blindsided Cedric.
And it was so interesting to watch her work, because at this point, Brooklyn and Cedric are out of the game. She really only has Cam and MJ as a number at this point. That's where that trio really started to kind of come together on this vote. And even though her and Quinn relationship has been tumultuous up to this point, she really used the fact that they both wanted Tucker to go home to forge that connection. And forging that connection with Quinn this week is what kept her safe the next week, which allowed her to take his ass out the next week after that. So she brings him in, and she also brings in Leah, who is someone else that she really hasn't been working closely with strategically up until this point, but she needs her for the vote, and she brings her into it by providing the information that Tucker needs to go. So we just it shows once again that she has so much influence without even being the HOH. Like she said, she's gonna say in her final speech, she's already been working on it, but her power in her words is her influence. And by remaining off the block at the hands of T-Core, she was able to rally her MJ, Cam, Leah, Quinn to all the Big Tucker with her this week. And it was a major blindside to the visionary side of the house.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just got blindsided by them and you got your lick back just like that.
Yeah, it's like, to really put into perspective, from her worst position in the game, her closest ally just got taken out the week before. The next week, she still has the social capital and strategic pull to get the other side of the house, who just flipped on her, blindsided literally the next week after her closest ally goes home. It's actually insane how she's able to do that without Brooklyn and without Cedric, and they just got blindsided the week before. It's like, you lost 2 of your strongest assets in this game, and you were still able to wield power to make this move with someone like Quinn, who's been bad-mouthing you all game and trashing your game the whole time, with someone like Leah, who you haven't had a great connection with, and you're low-key shading behind doors. It's like, she's able to put first of all, not show people how much she is upset with them, because she was upset with Quinn for exposing the Pentagon. He just didn't know. She has been upset with Leah this whole time. Leah just didn't really know the extent at this moment. So she's still able to go to them and capitalize off of those relationships that she still has, but and use it to make a move like take out Tucker, which is one of the biggest moves of the season.
Yeah.
So
And it was a major move. And it's like you just said, right after getting two of her closest allies taken out, she then wielded control to do this. And it's so interesting because now she's in final two. Now she's in final three with people would say two of her closest allies. And it's like those were not even her original number ones. You could say
yep.
Cedric and Brooklyn were. And it's like the fact that she lost both of them, picked up MJ and Cam, and still made it to the end of this game. Like so much adversity that she's had to face. And she just shows that she's an adaptable player that can work with damn near anyone. It's like it just makes me feel like Chelsie was going to be at the end of this game no matter what. It depended on who it was going to be with.
I agree. Like we said, there was the beginning stage with the first 4 weeks, and then the second stage, it was so small because it was between Cedric leaving and this move. Like this blindside shifted her game once again, and this was the launch to her being to where she's at right now in the final three. This move right here, it deciding to not be afraid to take the shot at Tucker was very vital to her game. And I think a lot of people in this position would be afraid, or they wouldn't think they could do it, or they wouldn't try to do it, or it doesn't seem viable. But even though she doesn't have any of her close allies here, she was still willing to push for this literally figurehead at this moment. He was at the top of the game, and she was still willing to push for him to go home and then achieve it and then execute it. And once it happens, it launches her into this end game where she's in so much control. Quinn wins the next HOH, and this was the last time I felt like there was even potential for her to be vulnerable. But because she just made this move, Quinn is now locked in, and he's now
her favorite line. He fell in line. She loved to say somebody gonna fall in line, and bitches been falling in line all season.
Period. He fell in line, and so Quinn is perceiving this last move as, oh, okay, now these are my people. I'm not going to target any of these people, which are Chelsea's people. He's now not targeting Makensy, who was after him, but was with Chelsie in this vote. Not targeting Cam, who was not that loyal to him, but was with Chelsie with this vote. So now, not only is she protected, all of her people are protected because she combined forces with Quinn and Leah. Damn, she's nasty, because what happens next week? God!
She take out Quinn.
Why is she so nasty?
Leah has a chance to clap back at her, and it doesn't even happen. Like
this is right in a row. It goes Quinn, Chelsie, Leah. Quinn wins this HOH, protects Chelsie and all of her allies. And by the end of this week, Quinn, by protecting all of his allies, he puts up his own ally, Joseph. And Chelsea's like, look, if Joseph's on the block by the end of the week, Joseph is one of the only people who's a threat to my game, which was true. And so she decides, even though Cam didn't even want Joseph to go, Leah didn't want Joseph to go, Quinn didn't want Joseph to go, no one in this new alliance she had wanted her to go. But get this, she still has great connections with everyone else she just blindsided the week before. So Chemo and T Court and Rubina are still bonding with her. She's still bonding with them. So she's able to take Makensy and be like, okay, y'all, all of us are on the same page. We don't want Chemo or one of you guys to go home. So let's all just make sure we vote out Joseph. So not only is she flipping the vote, but she's also maintaining a relationship with these people who she's now going to keep in the game. And this is where her bond with the trio, which has always been strong, but this move here, it like really links them in a way that is strategic, because she's been cool with the trio, but they've been on the other side. And she's been on the other side of them, and she's not included in their alliances. They're not included in hers. But once this move is made, it kind of feels like, okay, the two trios, they're fine with each other. It's the outliers that are now going to be taken out, like Leah or Angela or Quinn and stuff like that. So this move does a lot for her game. At the same time, it's a lot of moving pieces when she takes out Joseph.
And it's like I said, two of her allies taking her back to back, and she gains control of the season and takes out two people who were coming after her back to back. And it's literally one of the best moves, some of the best moves for her game, because these are only people that are threats to her specific game.
So she's on the bottom, blindsides Tucker. She's in an okay position, blindsides Joseph out of the game, and then she wins the next HOH. And at first, she's going through this HOH, and she's like, okay, I'm going to put up Chemo and Angela, the two perpetual pawns. But when Makensy wins veto, And we see her throughout the entire week like, really, I don't want to take out none of the trio because they're all now kind of in my good graces. I just saved them. I just worked with them on this last vote. So it might be better for me to take a shot at someone like Quinn. And the reason she can do this is, like I said, she made a bond with the trio. So now it's like, even though there's 3 whole people in the game that are going into like the top 10, she's able to comfortably do that because she's made such a good bond with them. And she's able to take shots like this because she has bonds all over the house. So this week, her and Makensy are talking. And then we see Angela come out of nowhere. Angela comes, and Angela has this theory that that Quinn and Leah, and she caught Leah and Quinn trying to be in cahoots with the trio. And this gives Makensy and Chelsie the go-ahead to go ahead and target either Quinn or Leah, which either one works because they both have to go. And I think that was Chelsea's mindset in this moment. She's like, look, according to the structure of the game, Quinn and Leah are the next 2 biggest targets for me.
And Quinn and Leah, it's like her intuition also is just so great because Quinn and Leah that week were discussing Chelsea's a great game player. She's going to have to be a target at some point in this game. So it's like she literally pinpointed people who were specifically coming after her each and every week and made sure that they were the upcoming target or the target for that week. Mm-hmm. And she used this week to take out Quinn. And it was another one of her masterful gameplay. I mean, 3 weeks in a row, she took out a target that was coming for her, that was not going to look out for her the way everyone else in the game was.
Mm-hmm. So Quinn going home leads to, and while Quinn's going home, she's talking to Leah, and there's discussions about how Leah and Quinn were the options for the renom. That was out in the open.
Leah to her face. Leah, likely you were Quinn going up.
Leah was aware, and that's the thing. When I'm thinking about Chelsea's game, it's obviously not perfect. No one's game is perfect. There's little tidbits where I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. Like this moment here, telling Leah she was the option, she probably shouldn't have done that unless she was actually just going to put Leah up. And then like in the past, we talked about how she was getting upset at Cam when there were other stuff going on. And it's like all of those moments are like moments that she can learn if she were to ever, I guess, come back and play. Or even down the line, I feel like she does start to learn it because towards the end of the game, she's able to control it a little bit when it comes to the Cam stuff and it overtaking her mind. At the beginning, it was like, that's all you were talking about to the cameras. And towards the end, she's able to focus on these strategic moments and take out these strategic people, even though she has these feelings in the back of her mind. So there are things that are like, okay, you need to clean that up a little bit. But for the most part, it hasn't deterred her game in a negative way in any of these moments. Even this moment with Leah ends up winning the next HOH. And it's like, ooh,
I thought it was over for her.
Because
Leah literally discussed nominating and targeting Chelsie the week prior after Quinn was backdoored.
Mm-hmm. This was the most risky week for her, even more so than when the Pentagon got exposed. This week was the week that if Chelsie would have went home, it could have happened because the trio stayed, it was a risk. She saved the trio, but also she's risking the fact that if she's nommed against one of them, there's 2 automatic votes that might evict her. And because she took that risk, she could have been in a very bad position here. But on the flip side, because she had her allies like Cam and like Makensy being her disciples being advocates for her, it prevented Leah from wanting to even target her. She was scared to target her. Chelsea's power was just too much. So it's like those strategic things that she does throughout, spreading her strategy throughout with Makensy and Cam, and then also the trio on one side, it's keeping her safe with everyone they're involved with. And since they were involved with Leah, that Leah was able to be convinced not to target her in this moment. And you know what else I want to talk about?
What?
I remember this week, Tikor ends up going home this week. Tikor was the person who was connecting Chelsie to the trio in a lot of ways. And I remember it seeming like an issue because, of course, Tikor is advocating for Chelsie every turn. She doesn't want Chelsie to go. She's making sure Chelsea's in her top 4 plans, potentially even top 3 plans, a very strong ally. But at this moment, in my opinion, at least, Tikor was also Chelsea's biggest competition.
Yes.
And I remember saying this might be a blessing for her game in disguise, because if Tikor survives this round and is able to stay a little longer, especially because Chelsie didn't want Tikor to go.
Right.
So if T Core survived this round, sure, Makensy wins the next HOH, but Chelsie isn't gonna want T Core to go.
But what's also so great is that it just shows her discernment skills, because we were saying this week, if Chelsie does not want T-Core to go, T-Core will not go home. I do believe that she had the power to influence Cam if she needed to, but she didn't do it. She kind of allowed her allies and Angela and Leah to take out T-Core. And I feel like it ended up being one of the best things for her game, because her biggest threat to winning the game was taken out, and she was able to run the game from there. It was so great. And like you said earlier, her stretching out her strategy, she had two of her allies protecting her, and then even T-Core's trio were not throwing her under the bus, really.
Yeah.
Like she was still well protected. And this week she was taking a back seat. She was hella pressed about what Cam and MJ had going on. And she was left out of this vote flip for a while. It started looking like Makensy is about to overtake her position in the game, because Makensy is starting this relationship with Leah and Angela. Makensy is in on the T-Core flip. Makensy is starting a relationship with Rubina. So it's like Chelsie is only worried about Cam and MJ. She didn't even know T-Core was going home until like 2 days before it actually happened. So it was just that general fear of, is Chelsie losing her grasp on this game?
Yeah.
And of course not.
She was getting very distracted. And that's the thing. I'm not gonna sit here and say that she wanted T-Core to go, because she didn't want T-Core to go. I genuinely think she wanted T-Core to stay even in this moment.
Right.
But before this moment, she had conversations with Makensy about how T-Core is a threat. And she would agree. And she would be like, that is true. And she seemed very aware of the fact that if someone needed to go, she even said before this week, she even said, T-Core is going to have to go eventually. And she was very aware of the fact that T-Core was going to have to go eventually. So because she's had those moments, because she said those things, when we go into this week and T-Core leaves, because Chelsie has had an awareness that T-Core needed to go for her to succeed in this game, I don't think Chelsie took it as a blow. We all kind of call it a blow, or the fans have all kind of called it a blow, but Chelsie never really called it a blow. In the way that we are, like,
because it didn't matter. And I don't think any one of us expected her to have the hold on MJ the way she does, because it was MJ's HOH that she used to rectify all issues she had with the prior week.
Yeah. So when MJ wins the next HOH, it seems like she just took a big blow. But that's the thing. Chelsie's best moments are after she takes any type of blow. Because when Brooklyn went home, she flipped the entire house and took out Tucker. And when T-Core went home, she controlled Makensy's entire HOH. And this is where not only was it looking bad for Chelsie, it was looking great for Makensy during the week that T-Core went home. That was a perfect move for her. And Chelsie wielded Makensy's HOH to take out Leah, who was the biggest competition to her in the game, who previously just didn't take her out, which is crazy. Leah just did not take her out when she should have. And then Chelsie used Makensy's HOH to take out Leah, who was Makensy's very close ally, who was very loyal to Leah, who Leah was very loyal to. So it's like
Leah and Angela being in the game kept Makensy well insulated. Like, of course, Makensy still made it to the end of this game, but she doesn't have much win equity next to Chelsie. By having Leah and Makensy in the game, I think she would have had more win equity and more of a chance to become a major player within the game. Like right now, she's seen as a puppet by some people, and especially the general audiences. But if she had, stuck with her guns, kept people in the game that protected her, she would have been the well-insulated person, the person at the head of the game instead of Chelsie. And it's like, it goes back to the T-Core week. Like, it seemed like Cam and Makensy only took out T-Core just to be Chelsea's number one, because every move they did after that week was to just protect Chelsie and go to the end with Chelsie. They weren't trying to hurt Chelsie. They just wanted to be closer to her. And that was proven in their actions.
Yep. So she wields Makensy's HOH and takes Leah out. And this is where her control is like, there's no disproving it, because she's literally controlling this girl entire HOH. Makensy's listening to everything she says. And initially, Makensy is finna target Angela, which already isn't good. And Chelsea's like, let's actually backdoor Leah. Makensy wins the veto, uses the veto on her own nominations, and puts up Leah in replacement through Chelsea's push and through Chelsea's control. After this, it's a double eviction, and Chelsie wins the double eviction HOH immediately after that and takes out arguably her only other competition in this game, Angela. And this double whammy, it's over.
Yeah.
Like it's over after the Tucker move. I think it was already a trajectory to where Chelsie was going to be in the end game. But I'd even argue T Core leaving was good. Between T Core, Leah, and Angela leaving, the game was cemented for Chelsie.
Yeah.
There's no
That
more
was her
competitive.
last hurdle. Like Chemo and Rubina were speed bumps.
Genuinely towards this end game, after Tucker went home, her main hurdles for getting to the end were the fact that Leah and Angela were a duo targeting her, and the fact that T-Core potentially could be the one person who could beat her in Final Two. And all three of those hurdles got taken out by the time we made it to the top 5. So we're at the top 5, and she's in the best position in the house. She's positioned with this trio of Makensy and Cam. Makensy is this comp beast who keeps winning all these competitions. And now a new issue is forming because Rubina and Chemo are like, we're in a tough position. And one of the things we could potentially push is for Chelsie to be the person to get taken out of this game.
And I was scared again. Only because I'm a paranoid ass person. And when she nominated both of them in the double, I felt like maybe they would take it personally. To be fair, I don't think they took it personally. I think they just started thinking about their position. And at that point, with Makensy having HOH and veto again, they felt the only other option was for Chelsie to go up and go home because they knew that they could probably beat Cam, but they definitely cannot beat Chelsie or Makensy. However, I mean, they are very inactive players, so they didn't do much work in actively trying to get her as the renom. But I do recall Rubina trashing Chelsea's game a lot to MJ, and I just thought that not that MJ would renominate Chelsie, but I didn't like that Rubina was trashing Chelsie because I felt that MJ might feel like I have to cut her in a final 3 situation to basically win the game. Because by the final 5, Rubina has been trashing Chelsie this entire time up until the final 4. Not negatively, but game-wise. And so I'm just scared that even to this day that Makensy is still thinking some of those things and might cut her if she wins.
And I do want to say, because there is discussion about Rubina and Chemo just might not be good players, and that's the only benefit. But we just went through it, and we're not necessarily talking a lot about the other players who are getting taken out, but Chelsie throughout the season is taking out the players who would have in this position tried to convince Makensy more to take her out. Players like Tucker, who was saying her name literally the week before, she took out of the game. Joseph, who was saying her name literally the 2-3 weeks before, she made sure to take out the game. Quinn and Leah started to discuss her name. Quinn got taken out the game by her. Leah and Angela started to discuss her name. Both of them had got taken out of the game, and she put them in a sticky position to not to be afraid to target her when they were in power. So it's like she has eliminated the strongest competitors to talk against her and to advocate against her. So that way she is in the end with Chemo and Rubina, who aren't active, who aren't strong, who aren't the most threatening players. She purposefully wielded her game to where the final 5 is her and some of the weaker, less active players of the game, including Cam and Makensy. Like Cam, well, it's specifically Cam when it comes to less active Makensy with being convinced of things. It's like Cam, Rubina, and Chemo were 3 of the least active players of this game, including Brooklyn, Kenny, bitch. Like they are like probably the 3 least inactive players. And it's like she ended up in the final 5 with him. And it's because she made sure they were in the final 5 with her. And she made sure everyone else who was active and who would have targeted her and who would have took the shot were taken out before them. Quinn would have. Joseph would have. Tucker would have. But she had to make sure they got out at those very pivotal moments when
where it seemed scary, where it seemed like if she made this move, her game could be impending danger, but she made it work. And that's why it's beneficial that you have a game like Chelsie where she can also win for herself, because she can make a big move, then she can win power, then an ally that she controls wins power. It's like she's able to manipulate, she's able to have her own social connection, she's able to protect herself from the bottom. Like wherever part of the game that she's in, she's able to work within it. Like this is a woman who I feel like has played the Secret Alliance game. She's done the Onion strategy. She's done, I feel like, so many different strategies of Big Brother. Play from the top, play from the bottom, played in the middle. Like she has been all over this game as a player. And so I just think, like, I don't know how people do not see her as a legend. She hasn't won yet, so I get it. Like, you don't want to give her that just yet. But once she wins, I feel like it stamps. I'm sorry.
So yeah, this is the final four. After this week, she wins the final four HOH. So she solidifies herself in final three, and she also has a plan, as she usually does. And she wants to make sure that she is throwing the veto so that way she doesn't get the blood on her hands for who's getting taken and who's getting evicted and who she's using the veto on. So that way, Cam and Makensy still both want to take her to final two and the final three. And she achieves that. She's able to throw the veto and convince Makensy to not evict Cam, even though Makensy wanted to evict Cam this entire time, the last couple of weeks, and still be in the final three with the two people she wanted to be in the final three with both of them at least saying here and there that they would take her to the end.
And I think that I kind of want to see if that strategy also worked, because for the last few weeks she has been playing them against each other while also simultaneously protecting Cam with MJ. It's very interesting because even back in week 11 at top 5, she wanted to use her veto to save Rubina and nominate Cam, but Chelsie vetoed that as well. She said that's not going to happen. And then in final 4, she wanted to evict Cam, and Chelsie said that's not going to happen. However, she still tries to dead the idea of MJ taking Cam by separating them and saying things like, okay, like, two of us deserve to be in the end. Like, we've done the most work. We've pulled the more work. We should be in the end game. So I'm interested to see if that actually worked. Would Cam take Chelsie? Would MJ take Chelsie if they had the power? I don't want to see it because I need Chelsie to win and take herself. But I just feel like I wonder if that works. Would they both take Chelsie? Like, that's something interesting. I hope people ask them after the finale. Like, would you have taken Chelsie if you made it to the part 3?
I agree. So here we are. We're in the final 3. She's won part 1 of the final 3 HOH, and like we said, we just have to see on finale night what happens. And now that we went through it, overall, Chelsie's game has been the epitome of dynamic. Honestly, she's played from the top, like you said. She's had 4, maybe 5 HOHs. There's also been HOHs like Tucker and Leah, who were the worst person for her to win those HOHs at the time, and she still was able to survive. There's been HOHs like Makensy, where she was able to control what they did. So she's controlled HOHs, won HOHs, and survived when the worst person who's won it wins it. So she's definitely gone through a lot of trials and tribulations. And I feel like for me, it makes it easier for me to understand how good of a player she is, because your alliance getting exposed and the Pentagon blowing up and Cedric getting blindsided, she's still able to survive that. And while surviving it, take out Tucker from the game. And then she's able to take control. And then when she's in a sticky position where T-Core gets taken out, she's able to then run Mackenzie's HOH and take out Leah, her biggest op. So it's like, I've seen her play at elite levels within this season. So for me, overall, she really is a top tier player from the way she's played this season from beginning to end. It's always been positives no matter what position she was in. So for me, it's definitely given a top tier player. And if she wins, it's given a top tier winner. What you think though?
Of course. I already said it. It's like, she's a legend in my eyes. If she wins this game, I think it's solidified.
Yeah, it's crazy watching a legend. And she has so many positives. We just went through them all. And like I said, there were negatives here and there, or things that were like qualms you could find in her game. But of course, you can find that in all people's games. But within this season, none of her negatives affected her game in a negative way. There's a lot of the time you see legendary players and they have a negative, and it's like, ooh, you might cause a bitter juror, like Paul. And then it affects his game and he loses. Or even like a Tyler who played a very strong game, and then you're like, ooh, you could be making people upset. And then they lose. And it's like, okay, you had negative stuff in your game. Anthony Douglas from Big Brother Canada, similar things. It's like, you can see their negatives and then it affects their game because they lose or they get taken out or something occurs. But with Chelsie, the negatives that we can find are like her being too concerned about Cam, but that hasn't changed Cam's perspective of her. Cam hasn't taken her out from yet. It hasn't affected her game. So for me, when I think of a legendary player and I think of, Dan, you lost a jury vote that might have been bitter, might have not, or even in Dan's first season where the entire house was kind of calling him names and calling him out and trying to trash his name and trying to get him out. Chelsie hasn't been in a situation where she's been that targeted or been called out or been caught up. Like even Nicole Franzel and BB18, they're like, you got to take out Nicole, the next person. You got to take out Nicole. That didn't happen with Chelsie. Chelsie was able to take the people who were targeting her out before they started spreading that rhetoric. And it's like comparing it to Legends, it's like it's very less effective of her game when you look at her mistakes, because I feel like her mistakes are less bad than some of these other Legends mistakes. And that's why we have the legend Chelsie, who's been born right here. But yeah, boom. Any final thoughts?
No.
Let's move forward. Next we have Cam. Ciao. Rewind back to week 1. And now that we went through it before, we'll go through it a little faster. But with Cam, firstly, he's won 0 HOHs. He's won, and he's very sad about it. He's won 1 Power Veto, and he's won 0 AI Arenas. He's been nominated 3 times, and he's gotten 1 vote to evict the entire game. So here we are. We started off the game with Cam. Week 1, we already talked about Angela's HOH week. And a lot of the things that was going on with him were similar with Chelsie. He was also in the CCC Alliance these first 2 weeks. He was also in the Pentagon these first 2 weeks. He was also in the Collective these first 2 weeks. But when it came to him, it was a lot of, in my opinion, his likability. He was a very neutral kid. He was very likable. And he was talking to a lot of different types of people. And he was socializing. So his social game got him pulled into this core, these alliances, etc.
Yeah, and this first week, I really thought that this was a potential winner because he just had the archetype of someone that has won these games before. Like, he's a very chill, nonchalant person. People gravitate towards that. People feel like he's going to be calm under pressure. He's not going to be paranoid. And we saw a lot of people gravitating towards his energy. He got included in this Have Not Guys Alliance that Tucker was forming week 1. I remember Lisa was trying to forge a group in these early weeks, and she was trying to include Cam in that. So he was always getting included. The fake barbershop alliance he was also included in, and he was well set up within the Pentagon Alliance. So it's like he was very well connected, especially in this week 1. I thought that he was someone that was going to be able to win it all. I will say, he doesn't have necessarily the win equity, but I'm not shocked that he's sitting in Final 3 based off of his archetype alone.
Yeah, and in this beginning of the game, it was so impressive, specifically week 1, because when we kind of lead to week 2 and week 3, there was a lot of issues that were starting to arise because him and Leah had this whole showman's thing, and the showman's thing was getting around, and it was making people like Chelsie, who was HOH week 2, upset and concerned. We know why she was so concerned.
She was talking about getting him out that week, like not getting him out, but like nominating him and trying to get him in check, and it's like, oh no.
Yep, it was a lot. And the house, it started to spread. The house started discussing, we're not here for showmances. We just split up Matt and Makensy. Keep that shit cute. So it was already looking rocky, and it was like making it seem like, okay, your decisions are questionable because you need to not do this. So
I think what killed me is that in week 2, when he sat up in the HOH room and volunteered to be a pawn, it was so jarring that quickly. And I think that's when Chelsie saw he must really be feeling Leah, because the situation was basically MJ and Leah was in Chelsea's HOH room. And of course, MJ and Leah didn't want to get touched. So they were all up Chelsea's ass that week. And they were talking about, well, we need a pawn. We need a pawn. They called Cam into the HOH, and and MJ and Leah basically convinced him to be okay with going up. He's like, all right, I'll do it. Chelsie didn't do it that week. I think that because she genuinely just wanted to test and see if he was going to be okay with it. And he showed that he was. And she was like, what the fuck is this man doing? And we was all saying the same thing, because why are you volunteering to be a pawn basically to protect Leah?
Yeah, and the issue was like Leah was not even, it didn't seem like Leah was actually genuinely trying to showmance him. It was just Leah doing her strategy that she said she would do, which is use the guys, and it was working on him. He was like advocating for her to not get nominated in this week and in next week. Like he was advocating for her, offering himself as a pawn for her, and it's like he was getting worked on by Leah. Like she was working that ass. He was really actually falling for a lot of the tricks that I feel like she was kind of pushing for him to fall for, and that was putting him in a sticky position. But he was still in the core, and he was still in the main alliance. So I feel like he still had a lot of protection. The main issue I feel was that, combined with the fact that Quinn is exposing the Pentagon, and Quinn is building the Visionaries, and his main threat in the game at that moment specifically was Cam, because he wanted Leah. Yeah. And Cam was with Leah, so it was heavy on Cam need to be the one who needs to get taken out with this power if I use it, or if I flip on the Pentagon if I use it. And this even leads to week 3, where Cedric wins HOH. A lot of the same things are still going on with Leah, but in the background, Quinn's power is getting exposed. Tucker ends up finding out about it from Chemo, and this is what I feel like reminded me that Cam is a player in this game and not just Leah's.
He has his moments for sure. Like, I think that when something is ongoing, if the plan is active, or like if he's being told information, he is able to start having conversations that benefit him. It's just, if he's not being told anything, he kind of just sits there. He doesn't, I think, seek information or seek knowledge in the game. He kind of just coasts, and then someone will tell us something, and then he gets to work. And it's like, okay, well, we see you working now.
Yeah, I think that's what this situation, this was like a peek into how Cam plays the game. If he has all the information, he could use it, and sometimes he will. And then I feel like he's not going to, like you said, seek out the information, or he's not going to wield it, or he's not going to drive the narrative to figure it out, or he's not going to, take action on his own. And I think it's just a preference of play style. A part of me, it's hard for me to take a step back and like accept different play styles. But with Cam, I feel like I have to just accept the fact that he does play the game in a more laid back way. It's kind of like a Casey. Casey did not search for strategic moves and search for strategic ways to get through the game, but Casey successfully won a season, and I wouldn't say that it was an undeserving win. It was still deserving. A lot of people would, especially next to Tyler. But for me, it's like, she still won. Fuck deserving. She still won. And there is a viability to winning the game by just playing a more chill, laid back game without being an aggressive strategic player. You don't have to be strategic to win. Taylor Hell admits that she's not a strategic person, but she was still able to win the game. And it's like, it's not all about the strategy. But there are times where it's like, you should be active because that's going to be the best for your game. And we only saw Cam do it sometimes, but this was one of these moments, because Tucker ends up telling Cam that Quinn has a power. And Cam is like, oh, I got information. Let me go play the game. He goes to Cedric, who is the HOH, and he's like, well, Quinn has a power. And Cedric's like, oh, okay. And they start discussing, and Cam's like, the issue is he didn't tell the Pentagon shit. But how does Tucker know, who's not in the Pentagon? So this might mean he might be trying to be cool with, and they started to notice he's been talking to T-Core Chemo a lot. They're like, he might start trying to be cool with that side of the collective, T-Core Chemo Joseph, instead of the Pentagon side of the collective with us. And this discussion is him trying to lead into figuring out what to do with the information. Should we tell Brooklyn and Chelsie? Should we act on it and actually go with this plan that Tucker has presented to backdoor Quinn and all of that? Boom. So this was interesting as well, because I remember Cedric wanted to tell Brooklyn and Chelsie about the fact that the power was existed by Quinn, and he didn't tell them. But Cam decided they shouldn't tell them, and that they shouldn't just tell them about the power. They should try to just figure everything out and then kind of come to them with a plan. And this was an interesting decision, because I wonder, what was he thinking in that moment? Now that I'm thinking back to his decision of not wanting to tell him, did he just think they were too erratic, or did he think it was just smarter for them to figure it out, or did he not trust him? That's like an interesting.
I feel like maybe he just didn't want to get the block too hot. Like, he didn't want he didn't want it to get out of their circle. Like, he wanted to try and diminish the issue before it spread too far, you know?
And I think that's a testament to the way he's playing the game. He keeps his hands away from blood. If like this situation, this was a very messy situation, and he made sure his name did not get caught up with it. And I feel like that is what has helped him succeed in getting far in the game, is the fact that he is not just under the radar, but he's away from any of the mess, any of the backlash, even when the Pentagon kind of crashes within this next week. We slide into week 4. Of course, Cedric does his plan, doesn't do Tucker's plan. and he doesn't backdoor Quinn how he wanted to. He puts up Makensy. Makensy uses her power. All of that occurs. So they leave this week and they're still kind of feeling like, okay, we still have the Pentagon. It's okay. We're good. Quinn has promised to use his power. We're good. We go into week 4. Quinn does use his power, and he's really chilling around this time of the week, of the season. The only issue is that now Tucker is mad at like Cedric. He's kind of mad at him too for not going along with the plan. He's trying to juggle this relationship with Tucker, and he isn't really doing much outside of what he already has. And by the end of this week, we know Cedric gets blindsided. And when that happens, I'm expecting a big shift, like maybe what Chelsie did or something like that. And we didn't see really a shift at all. No shade. No shade. And that was interesting because it's like you stay all the way away from mess, even when the mess is directly affecting your game. Like he acted almost as if nothing happened. And in a way, it's like you would want him to be more active. But like I said, the reason he is here is because he didn't react.
Yeah.
If he would have reacted like Brooklyn, he would have went home.
And that was the biggest game play for him in week 5. Like, he wasn't so reactive. Tucker was initially very angry with him, which led him to being a nominee and even a potential target. But he spoke to Tucker throughout that week and basically pledged his loyalty. That's when he started building a relationship with Tucker and Joseph, who at the time seemed like players that were going to be in the driver's seat for a while. So Tucker, Cam reassuring his alliances with them was really good for his game. This is also when he started telling Chelsie that they need to start getting closer with MJ and Leah. We have to start bringing those numbers in more. So you really start to see that Cam, he's thinking. I just think that he's really just chill, like a nonchalant, chill ass person that does not react until it's right in your face, like impending danger. And it's like, it helps because he isn't so reactive. He didn't crash out like Brooklyn, so people didn't really want to target him. My biggest fear for him at this time of the game that he wasn't a priority for the triplets, Rubina, Timo, and T-Core, but at this time they were not trying to target him at all. So that was great for him, especially with Tucker being the HOH.
And it's moments like this where it's like I give him his applause for his thinking, because it reminds me of Matt from last season. He's an opportunistic social player. He kind of is just neutral socially until he feels like he needs to get closer to someone. Because at first, when he was suggesting Chelsie to get closer to Makensy, I was like, okay, you just want Chelsie to get closer to Makensy. But then we see within these next weeks, him and Makensy's relationship, they get very close. And it's like, thinking back, you did that on purpose. No shade, but you started cuddling with Makensy and Janky World for your strategic gain. That was not just happenstance, which you were telling Chelsie. No, you knew what you were doing because you told Chelsie to do it. So it makes you really think like, okay, he's doing these things subtly and it seems natural coming from him, but it's kind of like Matt's relationship with Sari last season. It's like, you knew what you were doing. Yeah. You knew why you were close to Mother.
It has some intentions in it for sure.
And then it's like, even thinking about his relationship with Chelsie, like his choice of allies has gotten him far. And I think that is a plus in the game, because someone was like, it's not fair to say Cam's a great player, but not like, or a good player, but not like Kimo or Rubina, because he's just he's similar to them. He just chose the better allies. But in my opinion, choosing the better allies is a positive for your game. It's a good thing. And he did it intentionally. It wasn't just, I'm friends with Makensy. He said, I know we don't fuck with Makensy, but we need her. And this moment is like very interesting because he did respond to Cedric getting taken out. It was just subtle. It was just, let me get closer to Leah.
Very, very low key. And it wasn't something that I feel like we saw in the moment, but now that you see that he's in the end game with MJ and Chelsie, boom, there it is. He's had that relationship with Chelsie since day one, and he was one of the main people pushing to make a relationship with MJ and Leah, who eventually protects them in Janky Week as well. So he made the connections with the right people, and I really enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah. And it benefited his game, because even the talks about the Leah issue from week 2 and week 3, you were thinking, or I was thinking, this is never going to benefit him. It's always going to benefit Leah. But when Leah wins HOH and protects him and Chelsie and Makensy, there you go. So yeah, after this, we kind of move towards week 6 when T Core wins her HOH. And she is not necessarily targeting him, but she doesn't prioritize him. So he gets nominated. He finally wins a competition, wins a veto, and he saves himself from the block. So that's very, very good. If he was a final nominee, some people probably would have wanted him to go like Tucker, but he was able. But even Makensy was on the block, so I feel like Makensy still would have been one of the bigger targets, but she wins the AI. So it's like he could have been in a sticky position. He prevents himself from being in a sticky position. And then when Tucker is a final nominee, he pulls the trigger. And I remember this week, I'm like, he's getting close to Tucker. Does he want to take out Tucker? I don't know. And I think between this move and the very next week where Joseph goes home, I'm starting to consider, should he have done something differently, because he was getting close to Joseph and Tucker, and he was developing bond with them, and they were bonding with him as well. Tucker didn't like Makensy. He was prioritizing the trio, but he was also saying a lot of things that it's like, okay, are you really protecting T Cora here? Are you really going to protect them moving forward? It didn't seem like Tucker wanted to work with T Core and Chemo. It seemed like he wanted to work with Cam and Joseph. So maybe not the Tucker move, but after Tucker goes home and Quinn wins his HOH, Cam does not have much control of the game moving forward, really. And he never really has had a lot of control this entire time. And we see this week, he doesn't want Joseph to leave. He feels like Chemo is a threat to his game. Chemo isn't really prioritizing him. None of the trio is. But he's left out of this vote, and Joseph is taken out by his two closest allies, Chelsie and Makensy. And it's like, Joseph was someone you were starting to build something with, you were starting to work with. Tucker was too, and both of them got taken out by Chelsie, who your closest ally, that's your closest ally. So it's like, you need to be more involved. You need to be more active.
And it goes to show, like, this is when his subtlety and his inactiveness as a player really started to damage his game, because this is when Chelsie, I think, really started taking the reins of the game around the Tucker and Joseph eviction. And with her at the head and Makensy winning all these competitions next to her, it really puts him in the shadow of both of them. So him not being able to win competitions and make his own decisions and really be at the forefront of some of these moves, it really makes him lose respect now where he's in final 3, and I don't think he has any move that he can pinpoint or put his name on, and I don't think he has much respect from the jury, because they can't see what move that he really attributed to. Even though he did help evict Tucker, he did help evict Leah, he did help evict T-Core, no one is putting him on the forefront of those moves because he didn't have the power to do it. He didn't really have the influence to do it. It was a lot of other sources, and he was on board with it. But even this week, he wasn't even on board with the Joseph plan, and I thought that was a bad thing. I mean, of course, MJ and Chelsie didn't turn on him, but them leaving him out, it just goes to show that they didn't necessarily have any fear about leaving him out of a vote and still working with him. They didn't see him as threatening in that way, which is good to not be seen as threatening for a target wise, but when your allies are leaving you out of things, that's dangerous. Like, they didn't essentially respect him, and we see that later on in the season when they're questioning him not being able to win competitions. He really didn't he didn't really gain that much respect within the game, strategically or socially, I feel, overall. And that's because he couldn't win the competitions, which sucks, because every year we talk about people not being able to win comps and not being able to forge their path, and usually it's the middle-aged women. And the fact that this season is now the D1 athlete Cam, but it just goes to show winning competitions are important to make your own resume, to show people that you're playing the game.
Especially if you play in such a low-key way like this. Like the next couple of weeks, we kind of see Cam do a similar thing like 3 times in a row. He's on board with the plan that was made by someone else, and we'll go through it because Chelsie wins this week HOH, and he, at this moment, first of all, he wants to go to the final 3 with Chelsie and T-Core, who were the 2 biggest jury threats in the game at this point, and that was already like a questionable want. He shouldn't have even wanted that, in my opinion. But when we get to the situation where we talked about how Chelsie and Makensy eventually wanted to target Quinn, and they put Quinn up and backdoor him, Cam is just like agreeing and on board with the plan. He's not in the room when the plan happens. He isn't a part of the driving force of it. And I don't know what he even feels like is good for his game or not in this moment. And I don't even know if it was good for his game or not, because he didn't really have a lot of active relationships to go through with this.
And I was shocked this week because in the beginning of this week, Chelsie was kind of questioning Cam and was asking, like, do you think Leah is someone that I should target? And even though Cam has been building this relationship with Leah and said that he needs to basically use Leah, he did tell her this week that Leah is someone that will potentially target you, and targeting her this week would not be a bad thing. Now, when Veto was won by MJ and they decided to use it, he was one of the voices telling Chelsie and MJ that Quinn would be the best option to leave this week. But it's like it's like he wasn't necessarily the one pushing that. He didn't come up with the plan to backdoor Quinn and say Quinn has to go. He was presented with two options and he picked the one that he felt was best, and that person ended up leaving that week. But it's like it was either going to be Quinn or Leah, and he just had to choose one. So I like we were saying, like, he's on board with the plan, and I think that his words mean something when he's actively pushing towards something, because I think they listened to him when he gave his thoughts about Quinn needed to leave. But he's not the reason why Quinn left. Like, it was already in contention. He just helped push it to be the final decision.
Yep. And so we lead to week 9, Janky week, where Leah is the HOH, and very similar situation happens. I will say one of the best things he did, which, I mean, it's the best, I don't know, but he definitely helped protect his allies from going up, like Chelsie.
This was a really good week. The way he
was
uses
very active about it.
The way he really uses his relationship with Leah was really great. And that's why, like, I was shocked that he also flipped on her the next week, because I thought that this connection with Leah is something that could have helped him out in this end game, because in this end game, he didn't really have anyone looking out for him, which is why he wanted to try and protect Chemo later in the game. But it's like, if Leah was still there, she would have been an out for you to be able to take out Chelsie, to be able to take out MJ and get to the end of the game. So, but he did great work with her this week in protecting Chelsie. He was a big reason as to why Chelsie did not go on the block, because Leah trusted Cam and he used that to protect his closest ally.
He was this was the most active he was damn near the entire season. But it's interesting because it's like he was most active when he was needing to protect Chelsie. Like, the time Chelsie needed the most, he was the most active. But it's like, I need him to be active when he needs to wield his game towards a certain direction. But this was still good because it was like trio versus trio. And he needed to convince Leah, who they just blindsided by taking out Quinn, to choose his trio. And he did do a really, really good job at this. And she ends up landing on the target of Tikor. And Makensy does a lot of work of making sure that this happens. And he ends up finding out about the plan, and he agrees with this. And he starts to try to push this narrative as well. The thing is, it's like, once again, like, he didn't expect or plan for Tikor to be the nominee. He didn't push for Tikor to be the renom. It just happened. And then when it happened, the plan of her potentially going home was talked about to him, and then he agreed to it. And it's like, just very similar to the last week with Quinn. It's like a plan is presented to you and you start to agree to it. And I think he does a good job of pushing his narrative a little bit whenever he becomes a part of a plan. But when he didn't create the plan. And that's just point blank in the period
on that, because it stemmed with Angela and Leah, went to MJ, and then it got to Cam. And Cam definitely did some good work in making Chelsie, I feel like, okay with the move. But in general, him and Makensy both did this just to get closer to Chelsie. They admitted it in the diary room on the edited show, that they were doing this just to get close to Chelsie. They were scared of their relationship and wanted to be her number one. So it's like, even the motivation behind it, I was kind of wary about. Like, these weeks in jury, it's like, it's very similar. That's why I was giving him a 6 on the player rating this entire time, because he has been a very stagnant player, to where it's like his social game is good enough to keep him protected, especially when his allies are winning. Because basically the entire jury phase is his allies winning, Leah, MJ, and Chelsie. So that kept him safe. But other than that, he's not doing anything to put himself in the forefront. Like, he's not spearheading any of these moves. He's just on board with them. So it goes back to him not gaining respect as a player, because he's not winning, and he's not the person with the stamp on these moves.
And that still continues to happen when we move into week 10, when Makensy wins HOH and Chelsie enacts her plan to get Leah backdoored. Like you said, I'm not sure that Leah going home was good for him. Leah has talked about in her exit interviews how she genuinely was going to be loyal to Makensy and Cam, for sure. She was going to continue to be loyal to them after this week, when they kind of ended up blaming it on Chemo and stuff like that. And his relationship with her has been helpful in the previous week. So it wasn't. I don't know if this was the best move, especially because it could have just been Angela. It's like it doesn't have to be this big extra thing. Angela's also on the block. It could have just been Angela instead of Leah, and Makensy could have just not used her veto. But he was so uninvolved with the decision making this week, so it was really just up to Chelsie and Makensy to decide. And of course, Chelsie had her influence to convince Makensy to do this. Plus, he wanted Leah to go up, and he wanted Leah to go home because of the last things he had been hearing about her. But considering what just happened last week, where she damn near listened to what you wanted to do, it's like you probably should have had that control with Leah a little longer and kept her in the game. But he wanted Leah to go here, which I'm not sure is even the best move for him. But he hopped onto that plan as well, as he's been hopping on the plans these last couple of weeks, and he's able to push it forward. So
and this plan, I kind of understand more, especially when he's told from MJ that Leah is saying your name. She's threatened by you and Chelsea's relationship, so he took that into account. And it was also a lot of his encouragement to MJ to backdoor Leah. So it just shows once again that he is a really effective player when he's in on a plan. It's just it would have been so much better if maybe he wanted Angela to go and he was going against Chelsie and telling MJ, well, you need to make sure that Angela's the one leaving this week. You shouldn't backdoor Leah. Basically pushing something that is best for his own game and also something that he came up with on his own. Because Leah isn't necessarily best leaving for his game, and he also didn't really come up with it on his own. So it's like, once again, it's not a move that he can take full credit for, because someone like Chelsie literally convinced this girl on her HOH to do it. Like, she's the one who's getting the credit for it. So it's like effective in helping making the decision and stamping out the person out of the game, but not really the forefront of it.
This leads into the double eviction. Angela just goes home. He was safe because Chelsie was the HOH, and then they head into the final 5, where it's Rubina and Chemo, and then of course Chelsie and Makensy are kind of linked up, and he's there. And there were a lot of conversations for Chemo and Rubina to try to use him in a way, try to convince him to go a little bit with them, because he has a better chance at beating them. They have a better chance at beating him. And that is true. We heard the jury speak. Well, I don't know if that's true, because he probably could have still lost to Chemo and Rubina, honestly. But we heard the jury speak, and he's definitely not winning to Makensy and Chelsie. But I think the issue is what you just talked about. No matter how good he might be at helping a move forward or driving a point to someone to make a move, if the move is never his, it's not going to be valued by the players in the game, and his game's never going to be in the best position. So even here, I feel like his history with Chemo and Rubina didn't run deep enough, because they didn't even end up presenting the plan to him. And it's like he didn't talk to them enough. They didn't talk to him enough. They didn't have enough history. He has tried to have conversations with both of them, but it never ran deep enough, and he never really had a strategic push to even try for it. He didn't even want it himself, so it never occurred. And so Chemo just ended up going home, because that's what Chelsie and Makensy wanted. And then that leads to the final 4, where
I was also going to say that this week is when MJ and Chelsie were scared of Cam a little bit, because they were like, is this man throwing competitions? They didn't know for sure. And MJ, as the HOH and veto holder, she wanted to potentially use veto on Rubina to get Cam out of the game. Now, Chelsie was never going to let that happen. So it wasn't going to happen. But, Cam did have to speak with MJ and basically promise MJ and Chelsie that he is not throwing competitions and get their trust back, essentially, because it did seem like MJ specifically was leaning towards taking him out this week. So he was almost in danger at Final 5. And then we also see that, once he was no longer in danger, that he was pushing for Rubina to go home over Chemo. And we saw in the edited show that he mentioned that, maybe if he takes out Rubina, then he can be Chemo's final 2, kind of dropping seeds that, okay, maybe he's not considering going to the end game with Chelsie and MJ. Maybe he will want to try and win some of these comps and take Chemo further to beat Chemo. So it's like we really saw more of what he was thinking. Like, he definitely did not want MJ in game with MJ, and he did not want her protected going forward, but he wasn't able to win anything to do anything about it. And Chelsie convinces him to go back to evicting Rubina, so Rubina ends up going. Chemo.
And that's the thing. This was the one time where he did come up with a plan, and we've been talking about it this whole time. We needed you to come up with a plan, and you didn't enact a plan. And he's good at pushing plans, but it's like,
oh my god, wait,
what?
I remember Chelsie on the edited show. She was like, "Hold on, Cam, you've been thinking."
No, for real though. But no, it's like it's interesting because when we're breaking down this game, he's good at pushing plans. He's good at pushing plans that are other people's. But now I'm questioning: are you good at pushing plans? Because when he finally made the plan himself, it didn't go through.
He wasn't convincing Chelsie of anything though.
And that's the issue.
And so I'm not going to put that on him because that would mean he would have to convince a person we just called a legend in this game.
And
so he wasn't convincing her.
And that is true.
But it shows that he can, of course, come up with his own plan. He knows what's best for his potential end game. And it wasn't Rubina being there. It wasn't MJ getting her way.
Yeah.
So those are good qualities.
Mm-hmm. But Chemo ends up going home anyways. And then in Final Four, we see that Makensy and him are kind of both saying they want to take each other out here. He doesn't win the Final Four veto. And so Makensy's the one who has to choose between him and Rubina. And when he's in this tough spot, he has good conversations with Makensy. He's had multiple good conversations
with her multiple times. Unlike someone like Rubina, who didn't speak to her much in this Final Four, Cam spoke to her damn near every day. He wanted to make sure that he was going to stay safe. And, he's had a close ally like Chelsie protecting him these last few weeks with MJ, but he's also done the work and talking with MJ and strengthening that connection with her to make sure that she does not feel like she can cut him. And it came down to a loyalty decision. Cam weeks ago said, we need to start pulling in MJ, start pulling in Leah. Cam worked on that to the point to where now in the Final Four and Final Five, MJ felt that she could not take him out because of loyalty.
And we make it to the Final Three where Chelsea's won part 1, MJ's won part 2. He is nominated and he will be one of the people who can get evicted on finale night. So we're just gonna have to see what happens with that child. But here we are. Overall, I just feel like we talked about it a lot. I think he is great at diminishing his threat level and not seeming like a threat. But part of me wonders, would he have just wanted to win a lot of comps and then maybe he would have been a threat in that way? So I need to know if he was genuinely trying to not be a threat or if he just couldn't win no comps, no shade, because he seemed very upset about that. But I think that he does have good qualities. I think he can push a plan and create a plan and think of something when he needs to. So for me, it's like average qualities for sure. But there you go.
Qualities that could take him to a win in a different season. But, I feel like we've said that about a lot of players in this new era. It doesn't take, you can't just be this subtle under the radar player. I don't think that's going to get the win anymore. Like the KC, the Xavier, the Cam archetype, Matt and BB25, I don't think that's necessarily going to win anymore. And you can see that in Cam and Matt.
It's definitely going to be harder. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to drive your own narrative. These juries recently have valued a story and have valued a good gameplay. And I feel like he hasn't had a strong one, but boom. Last but not least,
MJ.
Makensy. So Makensy,
you're a comp beast.
A comp beast because Makensy has 2 and a third HOHs. If she wins this last one, she will end with 3 HOHs. She has 4 vetoes and she had America's POV, but that was kind of a comp. 2 AI arenas, and she was nominated 4 times, but she has 0 votes to evict. This girl was never a final nominee. And she was nominated all them times. She either won one veto, won an AI arena, or used her America's Power veto. So she was.
Well, one of her vetoes was also, I think, it was one of the 4 is the America's POV.
Oh, period. No, it wasn't. She won Final 4, Final 5, Top 7, and when Quinn went home, and she used it to backdoor
that one.
Yeah. So
it's crazy.
She won 4 regular vetoes, 2 HOHs. So that's 7 comps, and then the 2 AI arenas if you want to count it.
Let me get off her neck. I'm trying to diminish her. Let me stop.
Yeah, them girl. Because what's the veto? The veto record is 5, so she didn't touch the veto record. She didn't touch the HOH
anymore. I think Jag hosts.
Oh, it's 6. Fucking Jag.
It might be 7.
Damn. Fucking Jag fucking up the records. That don't even make sense. 7. That don't even make sense.
Yeah, because Michael Bruner, he got 9 competition wins with 6 vetoes.
He did.
I think Jag has 7 vetoes.
7 is crazy. 6 makes sense.
Make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vetoes. Yep.
7 vetoes is ridiculous, y'all. Get the fuck out my face.
Yeah,
ain't nobody touching that record for a minute.
Yeah, he has 7 vetoes and 3 HOHs for 10 and 10 in total.
Damn. Yeah, she ain't at this record, y'all. Anyways, because people was like, yeah, Makensy can break the record. I was like, oh, can she? I mean, I guess if you count AI arenas.
And I'm not counting AI arena for sure.
Okay.
For real.
Yeah, me neither. So boom, with Makensy, let's start back to the beginning of the season, which is hilarious because she was not doing what Cam and Chelsea. She was not in none of them alliances, y'all. She started off very
for her to get with Cam and Chelsie.
It was very rocky for her. So towards the beginning of the season, week 1, Angela, she had big beef with Angela. She was talking big beef with
the first day of feeds, it came on, and we found out that Makensy was a cracked queen.
Yep.
And that she wanted Angela out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, well, of course Makensy is the HOH. No. Angela's the HOH.
She seemed so cracked that first week. I'm surprised she's not that cracked. She's still a little cracked, but she seemed like, girl, she seemed like she was finna be wild in this season. The way she was talking about Angela and moving around that house, it was bad, but it wasn't too much. So she's linked up with Matt. A lot of people are basically saying they're a showmance, and they have a lot of conversations about how they want to build and they want to try this and they want to make this alliance and they want to do this. And at first, it was like a struggle, a power pull between Matt and Makensy trying to pull people their way, and Angela being the HOH trying to make an alliance on her side of the house. But we quickly kind of found out a lot of people didn't really like Matt and Makensy. You know, Chelsie wasn't fucking with Matt and Makensy. It wasn't giving that she really had people like that. All she really was able to do was form a final 3 with Leah that Leah snitched on. What, that same week?
Yeah, and because Leah was talking too damn much.
That same week. And a fake alliance, which was the barbershop alliance, which we've already spoken about, which was fake to everybody in it except for her and Matt. Which is crazy. And Leah, which is crazy because Matt went home this week and they voted him out. So I don't know what she was thinking from here on.
but even after that, like when the barbershop blindsided her week 1 and Matt still went home, like she kind of stuck to her instincts and continued to go back to the barbershop group to protect her. And it's like, girl, that alliance is not real, mama. Like we saw early on, you know, Makensy, she's not a fan of this game necessarily. And so you could tell really early on, I don't think she understood how the mechanics of the gameplay work. So we really saw Makensy essentially learn this game throughout the season for sure.
Very much so. So she was blindsided week 1 with Leah. You would think they would become best buddies from then, but they started off pretty rocky. Leah was
They've been frenemies the whole time. Like honestly, her taking her out in her HOH week is not 100% shocking because they hated each other. They was trash each other every week basically.
Yeah,
but we're still friends.
Yeah, and that started literally week 1, week 2. They were already doing that. So we go into week 2, and she has just gotten blindsided. No one is really working with her. She's on the bottom of the house. And the only thing that really saves her this week is she did have a connection with Chelsie. One, she did. And then also she was able to use the fact that she had won America's Power Veto week 1. And she told Chelsie about this power, which made Chelsie understand, okay, I shouldn't put her up because she's probably just going to use this power and I'm going to have to just put somebody else up. So that saved her.
The first connection of Chelsie and MJ. This is when Chelsie really decided that she wants to work on this connection with Makensy and not target her for a while. And, you know, now we have them both in our final 3 and likely final 2. So, hey, and it's like, I was remember thinking like, this is really good on Makensy to use this power for her safety because, you know, Chelsie was kind of asking the right questions, but Makensy already had the forethought to expose this power just to keep herself safe. She basically started telling Darren the entire house that she had this power just so they know, if you put me up, I'm not going home.
How full circle is it that we started off feeds, Makensy and Chelsie talking, and they're probably going to be the final 2? Like that is full crazy. Circle. Like I remember thinking like, oh, not they the Christian girl, not they. What are they finna get? Is it giving Aaron? Like what is this? Hold on. But we went full circle, and they maintained a relationship for a while because even though week 1 Chelsie didn't like Makensy loved Chelsie from what I understood. She was always going to include Chelsie in whatever group they made with Matt. Like Chelsea's name was always brought up, and Chelsie was in the damn storage room half the damn conversations.
Yeah,
not actually caring. But yes, she's always been closer with Chelsie, at least from her perspective, especially. Chelsie just didn't like her. No shade. Damn, Makensy probably does not know that Chelsie didn't like her until like week 6. She has
Especially
no
because
idea.
she used the fact of like people previously targeting her to nominate them and target them, and it's like, girl, Chelsie the main one.
She wanted you out, girl. But this week she does good. She does good work. She stays off the block, but she still left out of literally everything. Nobody wants to work with her.
Yeah, like MJ very early on in this game is someone who I wouldn't say is an inactive player. Like she's trying to get information, she's trying to talk games, she's trying to, be a player, but she doesn't have any of the correct information, and no one is including her in the real structure, which at this point is the collective and the Pentagon.
Yeah, she's just a pariah. I think what helped her is that there were other pariahs too. There was Lisa, who everybody didn't really like. Angela, no one really liked. Kenny, who was left out because he didn't want to talk game. So it's like she had time. This season had a lot. And I remember at the beginning, I was like, it's a lot of people who you kind of got to go because no one is like talking to you. No one is game talking. There was only a certain group of people, which is basically the collective and like Tucker and Rubina, who were included in the game talk. Angela, Kenny, Matt, Makensy were all left out. And it was kind of just like, oh, it's just a bunch of people who are pariahs, and Makensy was one of them. So when we go to the Cedric week, of course, she's another option to be nommed again. Yeah. And she tries to use the same strategy, and it
worked at first.
It seemed like it was working, but a lot of stuff started blowing up with Quinn's power that we already talked about. The Tucker plan we already talked about. And she ends up having to be collateral damage because Cedric's like, dang, I can't do Quinn. I can't really do. He couldn't do a lot. So he was like, fuck it. I just have to land on putting up Makensy and flushing her power. So he nominates her. She has to use her power. And this was the spark of a comp beast. And she didn't even, this wasn't even the veto she won at this moment. Like this was the veto from week one. But
she had that in the bank ready to go. Okay. I'm going to cash in my first win. Now it's time to watch the fuck out. Okay.
Period. So she uses this America's power veto, and she's now safe from the block, and she can last another week at least, because that's really all it was giving at this point. And it's no shade, y'all. It's like she was trying to talk to people, but who cares?
It was like especially in this pre-jury, like, we know she wins those 2 AI arenas. If she had not won those 2 AI arenas when she did, she probably would have went home. Like she was on the brink of going home so much in these early weeks that it's like her game was on life support. Like I remember in the player ratings, we had no faith in her really at all because she was a target. Like even though she used America's power veto, she still wasn't included in anything real. No one really wanted to work with her. The main structure at this point was still the Pentagon and the collective, and as long as that continued, she was never going to be in anything real.
And week 4 is a great example of nobody liked her because Angela won the actual HOH, and Angela said she was going to nominate her. Quinn hijacked it, and Quinn still nominated her. Yeah. She was not like and Quinn and Angela hated these 2 totally different sides of the house, and both of them were going to nominate Makensy. And it was very, very bad for her.
And she was the target this week. If it's specifically this week, this was the week for her that she would have went home. Yep. We still talk about it to this day. Like her winning and the decision between Rubina and Cedric happening was all caused by her winning the AI arena. It should have just been her. It should have just been her.
I'm telling you, man.
But it just goes to show that she really is a fighter in this game. And I like players like that because it's like, even though all you bitches want me out, like I'm gonna still stick around. And I felt it with Makensy that it would get to a point that people were not going to look at her. And then it got eventually to a point where like she is basically in the center of the house. So it's like, it really goes to show, do not stop trying in Big Brother. Like there's always a chance for you to get included and then your game could change for the better.
And really this AI arena is what saved her game, all her entire game, because she was definitely going to go home, but also the rest of the game was now opened up because her winning this is what caused Cedric to be voted out. She also voted Cedric out. He got blindsided, and this led into the new structure. The entire Pentagon destroyed, the collective was destroyed, and when flips happen, it opens up the game for people like Makensy or a Tucker or someone who's not in the majority alliance to take over the game or at least have a better chance. And because it flipped and now the house is targeting the remnants of that, she's able to have some time to figure something out.
Yeah.
And
I will say, what you were going to say?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say in week 5, I was still kind of scared for her discernment skills because, Makensy and Rubina, sorry. Chelsie and Brooklyn were blindsided, so they were at the bottom of the house, and they were the pending targets for that week. But Makensy, she had a close relationship with Brooklyn and Chelsie, so she still spoke with them, and they kind of helped convince her that Chemo and Rubina and Tikor are the main problems here.
Yep.
So, she was basically kind of like willed it towards them to start targeting them, and it was like, well, girl, they're not the majority anymore. You shouldn't be listening to them. It's time to start getting in good with T-Core, Tucker, Chemo, Rubina, because you just voted with them to take out Cedric. So why are you not working with them? I mean, it eventually works out in the long run, but I think that's what kept her as a potential target, because she was nominated on T-Core's week, and it's because she wasn't using this time to really lock in with the Tucker, T-Core, Rubina, Chemo side of things. So she wasn't included in Sixth Avenue. She wasn't in the Friends Alliance. She wasn't included in any of that. And that still kept her in a precarious situation, because even though she wasn't targeted by Tucker this week, she was still someone that could be used as collateral damage.
Yeah, and I really think this is like a lack of her understanding of the game, especially this entire beginning of the game. It's like you can tell she's not a fan and she doesn't really know what to do, because in this moment, when you vote with a group of people to evict somebody, it's like a chance for you to get in good with them. But because she's over here agreeing with the people she just blindsided, essentially Brooklyn and Chelsie, now she's going to Tucker and advocating against all the people he's working with. So now she can't get into the new alliance. She's really her own worst enemy in this moment, because she's advocating to the wrong person about the wrong people. So it's preventing her from getting in good with them. And now it's making Tucker not even want to work with her, because she's coming for all the people he's working with. But she did try to start building a relationship with Tucker. And this started to happen because when the Cedric vote happened and they just blindsided him, she had a conversation like right after that vote. And Tucker and her kind of had a disagreement that they're going to start working together from here on. They're the two people who are on the outs. They weren't included in none of that shit. They're not into none of that shit. And everyone else is playing this schemy ass game, and not us. It's just us and Rubina. And so she's like headstrong on us and Rubina, but then she's also headstrong on T-Core and Chemo are the problem. And T-Core and Chemo are working with us and Rubina. So it really put her in a sticky situation to where it's like, you can't get in the alliance. So now she's left out of this new majority alliance, even though she just voted with every single person in it. So we lead into the T-Core week. And of course, T-Core knows that Makensy isn't her biggest fan and she's not in the alliance. So Makensy ends up getting nominated next to Cam and next to Tucker. And she's in another sticky situation because she is Tucker's target. Tucker's like, look, my alliance is HOH again. I'm just a pawn, and I'm a pawn to take your ass out. Makensy needs to go. And it's like, later in this week, we see Angela expose the fact that she wants to target Tucker. And it gets exposed, and everyone figures it out. And T-Core initially is like, oh, okay. Because of this, Tucker, we can just take out Angela because she's in this alliance, but no, she's saying your name, da 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 da. And Tucker's like, well, I don't really care. We can still take out Makensy. Makensy got to go. She's a mastermind. Like, she's playing all sides. Like, she's a threat. All of these, not even accurate things. But he wants her to go so badly when last week they were supposed to be number ones. So it's like she's already in a terrible position. And this was just another terrible position.
And I also remember him that week was like, he got upset with T-Core because he also wanted her to renom, was it Leah specifically?
It was Leah.
So he had his eyes set on Makensy and Leah, and that would leave Makensy as a potential target this week, but she ends up winning the AI arena again, which this AI arena win was great because there was no more sticky situations as far as her game. Like, after this week, she really started being centered and protected by a lot of sides of the game, because even though T-Core even nominated her this week, T-Core started to feel like she liked MJ a lot and that she wanted to see MJ in the end game and as a potential winner. So she started to build some connections that led to her into this point of being in Final 3.
Because even here is when the Cam and Chelsie trio the remnant starts to start rising, because they all end up voting together. After Makensy wins AI Arena, of course, Chelsie had her plan to make sure they blindside and take out Tucker, and Makensy is a part of this plan.
She makes it happen. Her winning AI Arena basically makes sure it happens.
Exactly.
Because everyone thought Tucker was going to win it, and she beat him in a puzzle.
Yep. And that's the thing. When it comes to involvement in the game, because Makensy has always been tried to be so active, but also she wins the most pivotal comps ever. She was the reason both blindsides happened because she won both of those AIs.
Literally.
Just so, those were her only two AI arenas. And it's like every time she wins it, the blindside happens. So it's like it's hard for a jury, for example, to not associate her game with these important pivotal moves, because no matter what's going on, no matter who's doing it, without you, it wouldn't have been able to happen. Even taking out Leah, if you didn't win the HOH, it wouldn't have happened. It's so many stuff that Makensy had to have be involved, or it wouldn't have occurred because she's winning these pivotal competitions. But the issue is like it's just based on competitions. But hey, we move forward. Let's not get too much into that. Mm-hmm. So she wins this AI, and Tucker's able to get blindsided, and now it's kind of forming this new group of people with her, Leah, Quinn, and Chelsie and Cam. And she has good relationships with Leah, Chelsie, and Cam at this point. So now it's like,
it starts happening, and
a game is created.
And week 7, her game fully turns around. She starts getting information within the game, and she starts gaining some win equity because people like Rubina and T-Core at this point are pushing this women's alliance, and they love Makensy and is trying to work with Makensy and Chelsie. She's heavily included in that. And also this week when Quinn is HOH, she's one of the main people pushing that T-Core should be the third nominee. Yeah. If veto is used, you need to put up another one of the trio so we can send them home and get them out of the game. It would be a mistake to do anyone else. And Quinn obviously didn't realize that. So, it just goes to show like how a player can be better in the game if they just have information. A lot of time people are not included in the main structure, so they look stupid as hell. Now, Makensy may prove that she kind of is, but it's, as a player in the game, she is more effective than we previously thought because she now has more information.
Yeah, and it's like it shows that she's been active this whole time. Like this whole time we're talking about where no one likes her and she's not involved in anything, she's still active. She's trying to come up with things. She's trying to go to the HOH and be like, "Hey, I got this power, don't put me up." She's coming up with so much stuff, and she's trying to be an active player, but it doesn't matter until week 7 when now she has an alliance. Now she has people working with her. Now she can actually have influence. Now she can get information. And it's like you being active is paying off a little bit more because now you actually have a better position in the game. But like you said, we'll see how that goes. So week 7, Joseph ends up on the block. And this is the week that Chelsie comes up with the plan that they could just blindside them and take out Joseph. And this is also pretty good for Makensy's game. So Makensy agrees to the plan, and by the end of the week, they end up blindsiding Joseph, and this puts Makensy in an even better position alongside Chelsie, who is now her number 1. We see the very next week, Chelsie wins the HOH, Makensy wins the veto, and it's like, bitch, we locked in. Okay.
This is when the duo started duoing, okay? Makensy and Chelsie started running the game from here, basically.
And we did a dynamic duos list. It's giving dynamic duo. I don't know. Child. It's giving dynamic duo. And they're gonna make final 2 low key.
June and Allison, who? They have to be in Mother Tier. Now, don't get us dragged.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Do not get us dragged. But they would definitely be up there with June and Allison. There's no shade. There's no shade. Maybe a nasty protected duo. They're protected by the blood. Amen.
So, Chelsie wins HOH, Makensy wins veto, and we talked about it already. They enact the plan to take out Quinn. And of course, Makensy is part of this, and the options are Leah or Quinn. She has a better relationship with Leah, and like we said, she's pushing for Quinn to go instead of Leah. And Cam begins to push a little bit for Quinn to go instead of Leah, and what happens? And I do think there are times like these where, not to be mean, shady, or anything, but when the decision is more up in the air, she's able to have a slight edge of influence because Chelsie almost couldn't decide because Quinn was a threat for many reasons, and Leah was a threat for many reasons. So she was actually genuinely asking her allies. Yeah. So in this moment where Chelsie is genuinely asking and not just pretending to ask, no shade, Makensy and Cam now have like a little bit of influence on the decision. And Makensy, because she's active, uses that influence. She does actually have an opinion. And we see this happen the entire season. She always has an opinion, and she does voice her opinion. And when Chelsea's like, what do you want to happen? She says, I want Rubina to make it to Final Four. I want Quinn to go this week. And when she does that, sometimes it does work. And sometimes her allies do listen, and it can be beneficial for her game. So here, Quinn going over Leah, amazing, because Leah wins the next HOH and protects her ass.
Within this week and these last couple of weeks, she's been voicing concerns over T-Core, and she's also been rebuilding more rapport with Angela and Leah, especially because during Chelsea's HOA, she uses veto on Angela. And anyone who uses veto on Angela, Angela is 100% indebted to. So she basically pledged her loyalty to MJ. And, we kind of see the remnants of this kind of trio forming between MJ, Leah, and Angela. She has a connection with T-Core and Rubina. She is the main one preaching that someone like T-Core is a threat to their game, and that all kind of culminates in Janky week 9, because it all comes to a head, child.
Yes. When Leah wins HOH in Janky week, Makensy has a lot of influence. And so does kind of Cam, and so does a little bit of Angela. So Makensy's on the mindset of course we need to target that other trio. She's helping convince Leah to not target Chelsie, to not target Cam, to not target their trio, and helping push her towards the other trio. Leah's like, okay, Leah, and Leah already kind of wanted to do that, so it worked. After Chemo and Rubina are nommed and Leah and Angela win the veto, Angela's like, look, I want to use the veto on Chemo. We're going to have to put up someone else. When that someone else is in talks, it ends up being T-Core, and this is when Makensy immediately is like, she gotta go. She gotta go.
And Biggie.
And it's like the entire time she's been talking about how T-Core could win the game. Her and Chelsie have had conversations about how T-Core is a very big threat. And so she uses this moment to push that narrative and push Cam towards agreeing with that as well. She goes and talks to Cam. It's like, look, I don't know that Chelsea's going to do it, but T-Core got to go. And Cam starts to agree, and Cam starts to push it as well. Angela has agreed. Angela starts to push it as well. So now Makensy is kind of a big part of this move to take T-Core out of the game and get T-Core evicted from the game.
And it really starts to look like Chelsie is losing her grasp on the game here, like we mentioned earlier, because Chelsie is more involved with, is MJ and Cam flirting? She isn't even aware that T-Core is going to be someone targeted until it's 2 days before the eviction. And MJ, she has this connection with Rubina. She has this connection with Angela and Leah. She has a connection with Cam. So it's looking like Makensy is becoming more insulated, especially after helping spearhead this move against T-Core. Like MJ was basically at the top of the game by this week, and if she had just continued it, I think she would still be in Final 3, but potentially winning as opposed to losing to Chelsie.
I agree. And it's like the move, it felt like in the time that Makensy was undermining Chelsie and was trying to get the one up in the game and position herself between these two duos, and all of that good work that she was doing this week, the next week when she wins the HOH, it's like, okay, girl, keep driving it home. And we quickly see that wasn't what she was doing. In her diary room, she admits she just wanted to make sure Chelsie was her number one, and there was no competition for that. And that was all that. Crazy. That's all that was.
It just goes to show the type of player that Chelsie is, because you got people taking out other people just to get close with you, girl,
just to be your number one. So that's all that was, and it's proven by the fact that she was initially just going to nominate and target Angela this week, who we thought was kind of like her sub trio. It's like you're not even targeting Chemo or Rubina, who you kind of just helped take out T-Core. It would make sense. Instead, you're targeting Angela, and it's really only good for Chelsea's game to target Angela right now. It didn't really make sense. And then after she wins the veto, her and Chelsie have conversations, and Chelsie, there's no other way to put it, fully convinces her to take out Leah. Makensy's like, no, I don't want to take out Leah. And Chelsea's like, yes, you do. And she's like, okay. Yeah. And that's basically what happens, because she doesn't want to take out Leah the entire time. Even after she nominates her, she still doesn't want to take her out. She never wanted to take her out.
That's what's so crazy. It's so crazy when players say the reason why they shouldn't be doing something and still continue to do it. It just shows that you really got convinced to do something that wasn't best for your game. And it's so crazy because even last week during Janky World, her conversations with Rubina, her conversations with Leah, it seemed like she was truly trying to undermine Chelsie, like you said. She was dropping seeds about maybe Chelsie can be targeted. When Leah would discuss Chelsie and Cam being a threat, Makensy didn't share that information. But as soon as she went HOH, she damn near shared all the information, threw Leah continuously under the bus. And then when Chelsie convinced her to take out Leah, she's sitting there confused and even tries to flip it back on Chemo leaving, but you can't do it. You can't do it because they're already on the block. You can't do anything about it. Or no,
Yeah.
on Angela leaving.
Angela
Sorry.
leaving instead of Leah, which
She
still
couldn't
bad
even do it.
for
Well,
her.
it's still bad, but like she couldn't even make it happen because she's already been convinced to nominate the girl. It's so crazy how none of what we thought she was doing intentionally was actually that. She was only trying to get close to Chelsie, and it shows by how she was ran like a Tomb Raider by Chelsie the next week.
Yeah, very unfortunately. And like you said, during JQ week, she was developing this relationship with Rubina, which we'll talk about later because that's starting to become important as well. So Leah goes home at the
Even in
double.
this week, it was really good because she didn't nominate Rubina.
Exactly.
So it
So
was
she was
like it
still
just
building
showed
it.
to Rubina that okay, I'm someone that I can be in the end game with you. She was having a lot of good conversations with her, and it's like once again something that I thought MJ was doing intentionally for her game to get her far, and then she cuts Rubina at Town of 4. So it's like all of this work that we're seeing her doing, it's like it doesn't go anywhere because at the end of the day, she is 100% loyal to Chelsie.
Yeah, over anything, even herself. Child. So Chelsie takes out Angela at the double. Shit, Makensy wanted Angela to go on her week, so this doesn't mean anything. And then after that, she wins HOH again. They're going back to back, y'all. Child, it's getting real bad. What is this? Oh, it's just 4 in a row. So Makensy wins the next HOH at Final
Yeah, it
5.
went Makensy, Chelsie, Makensy, Chelsie.
Yeah.
Really, it went Makensy, Leah, or it went Chelsie, Leah, Makensy, Chelsie, Makensy, Chelsie.
Damn. Chelsie has won. Damn. Chelsea's won every HOH she could play in since week 8 when she won. I didn't even notice that because she couldn't play the Leah. Oh, she could play the Makensy one. She lost. Child. Ooh. But anyways, Makensy wins the Final 5 HOH. She, of course, just nominates Chemo and Rubina. And this is where, like you talked about, Lee, she is thinking about how Cam might need to go in this moment, which was, I don't, I don't even know because not that Chemo and Rubina were threats physically because they weren't. They definitely could have beat Chemo and Rubina. It still just kind of felt like those are people who would still choose each other over Makensy and then maybe even potentially over Chelsie. We weren't sure. They were definitely leaning some negativity towards Chelsie that they brought to her, but she wasn't eating it up. She wasn't buying it. And that was very like circumstantial because Makensy couldn't go home that week. She was the HOH. So it's like, I don't know if that was even super safe, but I think she would have been fine either way because she probably would have won this next veto. I think the main thing this week is she should save Rubina and she should make sure Rubina isn't the one going home. And that's where the problem starts to rise because she's convinced not to take out Cam, which is fine. But Cam decides, okay, it's clearly better for Rubina to stay than it is for Chemo to stay for the girls. They want Rubina to stay. So Rubina should go. So he wants Rubina to leave and he starts pushing this narrative and he starts pushing it to Makensy and Chelsie and they all have this discussion and it seems like it's working. And a part of me is like, why is this working? Yeah. Because it was very close.
Allow them to do it.
Yeah, it was very close to where Cam would have got where he wanted and Rubina actually would have went home here. And it's like, that's even worse than I guess you taking out Rubina yourself next week. So I guess it wouldn't have mattered because she takes her out anyways. But in this moment, it was like, dang, Makensy, I need you to stand 10 toes down. And so eventually they give in and they allow her to just have what she wants for this week. And then the next week, when she wins the veto, kind of what Cam wanted to have happen. He basically said, I succeeded on the last move so that you would not evict me this time. Okay. And Makensy says, okay. And so she doesn't evict him. And instead she evicts Rubina, who said she would take Makensy to the final 2, who admitted to Julie she would take Makensy to the final 2, who has been saying to Makensy that she would take her to the final 2. And it's like someone guaranteed to take you to the final 2, or at least telling you, and you think you're evicting over Cam, who you think is taking Chelsie.
Yeah. And once again, she just makes another move that wasn't the best for her game. She literally said out of her own mouth several times that she feels like Cam and Chelsie would choose each other. Cam and Chelsie would choose each other. Taking Rubina into Final 3, cutting Chelsie for Rubina was her game-winning move. 100%. Yeah. She could have won unanimously in that situation. And she let her slip through her fingers because she chose her allies. Essentially, she chose Chelsie over anything, and Chelsie wanted Cam to stay, so Cam stayed. And it's like that is what's going to cost her to win, because even if she wins part 3, I think in her mind she'll go back to loyalty and what have I been rocking with this whole time, and that's been Chelsie. She's going to go back and choose Chelsie. I don't think she's going to cut her. I think she's going to lose gracefully to her. And even throughout these weeks, I feel like Chelsie has kind of started to convince her that you can safely sit next to me and potentially win. Like, she is so manipulated by Chelsie as a player. And I'm happy we do these deep dives because I feel like I do respect her more as a game player. Because I said at first that I think Cam would definitely deserve to beat her. I don't think that necessarily anymore, but it is hard to overlook how easily manipulated she is by someone like Chelsie. But to be fair, like I said, we call Chelsie a legend.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're gonna get manipulated by anybody, it might as well be the baddest bitch in the goddamn game.
Yeah. It's like in a way, like I'm trying to give her grace, but she wasn't manipulated by anybody else. So that's good. Just Chelsie. Mostly, like
And
I guess sometimes
that's the thing. It's like low key shit.
yeah, like no one else was making her put up people she didn't want to do or do things she didn't want to do. It was really just Chelsie. And it's like, okay, like that's literally a legendary player. That's up there with Dan Giesling. Like might be a little bit okay, but nah. Seeing Makensy's whole game, of course, we're here in the final three. She has a chance to win part 3 of the final HOH. She, like we said, is loyal. She kind of wants to stick with the loyalty. She might take Chelsie and lose, but she could take Cam and win. And honestly, talking about Chelsie potentially being a perfect winner. What's it called? Whatever it's called. Makensy has 0 votes against her. So if she cuts Chelsie and takes Cam and wins with all the votes, Makensy would be up there with Dan and Cody. But the issue is she's probably not going to do that. So here we have it. Makensy's game. I would say the comps definitely helped her get pivotal moments in her game and last as long as she did. And even like the moves that are accredited to her, I feel like they are directly associated with the fact that she was able to win a comp. And that's kind of like my tidbit with her game. It's mostly because of comps. And without those, I'm not sure where she would have went in this game and if she would have even been able to make it this far. But still very dynamic, still very important and integral to the game because of those vital comp wins. And there we have it with Chelsie. Well, I mean, with Makensy. All right. And that's it, y'all. And that's it, y'all. That was our last one. And thank you for tuning into this deep dive, this long deep dive of all 3 of the final 3s. That is their game, and that are our thoughts. And we're sticking to those or whatever. If you have thoughts on the final 3, I guess you can comment them. I might read them. I don't know. And make sure you tune in on Sunday for the finale right after. We will be going live, of course, to discuss the finale of Big Brother. On Tuesday, we're going to do our last player rating. You will get to see what we will give Chelsie, Makensy, and Cam officially as their overall rating. So definitely get into that as well. We're also going to be covering Big Brother 4 for BB Rewind in November, and then get into our other shows. Now that Big Brother's over, you can still watch us for Survivor, watch us for The Challenge, watch us for Love is Blind, or whatever. And thank you for keeping it real with the kingdom, y'all. We out.
Yeah.
Bye.